Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Josh Pizarro, born and raised in New York City. My story is different from most. After 10 years working in the post office, I realized I wasn't happy, so I decided to quit and go after my dream of becoming a real estate entrepreneur. While on my journey, I have encountered many struggles that have taught me the resilience needed in business. This is my story. Now I bring you stories from other entrepreneurs and their hustle to success. This is the JTB Podcast. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the J-Team Brand Podcast. I have a special guest here, Jody Burns. You said right?
Yes.
Jody Burns. Me and Jody met at your open house this past weekend. I was super intrigued by your story. It kind of reminded me a little bit of my story, not as much as obviously the business that you're getting into, but spending 20 years in your industry, then kind of getting tired of it, and it's like, you know what, it's time for a change. I went through that transition after 10 years, so I definitely wanted to share your story with our audience. So I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and a little bit about what you have going on.
Sure. So I'm Jody Burns, and I am leaving a 20-plus career on Wall Street. I worked in electronic trading.
Yes.
A lot of pressure.
I can imagine.
Environment.
How much cursing did you hear?
Oh, gosh. So those movies that they have made about Wall Street, they are exaggerations. Wolf of Wall Street, all of those movies, they're exaggerated, but they're not totally fabricated. It's a very... it's the kind of environment where ego is rewarded, super ego is really rewarded, and the more money you make, the better person you are. That's kind of the value system, right? So it's an interesting place to be, and I loved it. I really did. I spent 20 years on Wall Street because I thrived, and I kept taking on more and more responsibility and doing new things, and I really loved it.
Yeah. Was it the hustle behind it, or was it kind of just like, you're a New Yorker? You're born and raised?
I'm a New Yorker.
Okay.
Born in Queens, raised on Long Island.
No way.
Yep.
All right, we have a native New Yorker. Look at that.
Coast, but yeah.
Okay.
I loved the fact that the markets are always changing, and so I'm an intellectually curious person, and I knew that I could work in the markets and there would always be something new to learn. There's new technology, new regulations that come on, and so it was just this thing that I knew I would never get bored of. It's nothing that I deliberately went into when I first graduated from college. This was not where I thought. So it's every good thing that's happened in my life was an accident that I was just open to the opportunity when it came. And I just said yes because I didn't have a reason to say no. So I was on my second job out of college. So let's say, I guess I would have been about 26. And I studied economics and labor relations in college.
Interesting.
And I was a big feminist in college, so I took a lot of women's studies courses as well. And so my first job out of college was the perfect marriage of all of my intellectual interests, because I got a job as a data analyst at a women's policy non-for-profit in Washington, D.C. So I was studying things like wage inequity and the gender gap and glass ceiling.
Just behind the scenes things just works, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And so I was studying all of that and doing number crunching to advise policymakers and academics about policy programs that would make it easier for women to navigate various systems.
Wow. Okay.
And I loved it. It was super interesting. And so in my second job after that, I was once again a number cruncher. So that was kind of my thing. I was really good. I do. I come from a financial family. My mother and my brother are also in finance. We think with numbers.
That's awesome.
And so my second job was also number crunching, and I'm in Washington, D.C. at the time. And then a recruiter called me out of the blue that I didn't know and said, I have a client who's looking for someone with your background, specifically your data analysis background.
Okay.
And I said, well, who's the client? And they said, the NASDAQ stock market.
Yeesh, biggest client possible.
And I thought, well, I don't know anything about the stock market. My parents didn't trade stocks. We didn't talk about this at the dinner table. Like, the market was just this mysterious thing. Like, I kind of understood that, you know, if you worked on Wall Street, you made a ton of money. So I thought, well, okay, I'll take the job for a year, because what better place to learn about the stock market than at the stock market, right?
Years later.
So right. Well, that's what happened. So I fell in love with it. That NASDAQ job was probably the best job I ever had, because my job was to just analyze all of the data that NASDAQ generated, because it was a stock market, and just try to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
So figure out, why were people trading in certain ways? Why did they trade with certain people? Why did they make certain trading decisions? When an order is submitted to a brokerage like Charles Schwab or Ameritrade, what happens to that order? It actually bounces around to like anywhere from 2 to 10 different places before it finally gets traded. And I studied all of that, and it was awesome. And yeah, but I loved it. I loved it. I taught myself how to program in a statistical language. That was just a fantastic job, because I was excited to wake up for work on a Monday and Thursday. Like, I was as excited about Monday as I was about Saturday, because I loved going to work. And I would stay at work until I finally noticed that my stomach was growling and I hadn't eaten in 12 hours, and I thought I should probably go home.
It's time to go home.
It's time to go home. But I mean, I loved it. And that started me on a 20-year.
So what took you out of it? Because obviously we met under circumstances. You were telling me that you had finally walked away after 20 years.
Yes.
You decided to take your talents outside of New York, which, you know, obviously for New Yorkers, I guess you were living a New York dream. I get almost to most New Yorkers are like working in Wall Street. You know, you have your own place,
Right.
beautiful place, by the way.
Right. Thank you.
What made you make the transition to say, you know what, it's time for me to walk away and start a new venture?
So in some ways it wasn't my choice. I was working for a pretty large company. I had joined a small company that got bought by a huge company. And I spent 5 years working at the huge company. And this huge company had a tendency to restructure every 2 years or so, or they would sort of decide which businesses do we want to be in and which ones do we not want to be in. And in the midst of a major restructuring that happened in 2016, 30% of my division was let go. And I was offered the choice to move to another part of the company or severance.
Yeah, I'd probably take severance.
I took severance. I'm not a big company person. I spent 5 years in a place where I did not fit into the culture, because I like small companies, I like nimble, I like knowing everyone in the company. I know everyone, I know what their job is, I know who I need to go to get something done. Big companies are very hard to navigate, because there's just too many people. There's so much bureaucracy, there's so many procedures set up to make things scalable, but they get in the way of actual progress. And so I wasn't, exactly. I found it really difficult to actually serve customers. Like, that was why I was being paid, and I felt like there were a lot of things that the company would do that would make it really hard for me to do what they supposedly wanted me to do, which
So it was the
to
ecosystem
help
that was created.
customers.
Yeah, totally get it.
So yeah, it was never a great fit. So when they offered me severance or to stay at the company, I said, I'll take severance, please.
Sign right there, thank you.
So with my severance, I spent a lot of time traveling, because that's something that I'd always wanted to do.
Took some time off and
I
traveled.
did take some time off, and I hit almost a year.
Nice. Where did you travel?
Oh gosh, I spent almost a month in South Africa. I spent almost a month in Australia and New Zealand. Oh yeah?
Yeah, she's from Cape Town.
Oh, awesome! I love Cape Town.
Yeah.
I was in. Say that again.
Kalk Bay?
Yes. Yes, I was there. I was in Cape Town. I was in Johannesburg. I drove along the Cape Peninsula, the garden routes.
I've heard all of it.
It's amazing. But the best part of the trip was I went on safari in Kruger National Park, and the safari was unbelievable. I mean, I would never consider myself an animal person, but there's something about being on a safari, and you're seeing these animals in their natural environment, and they're just, they're behaving the way they behave. I just loved it. Absolutely loved the safari.
That's sweet.
So those were my really big trips. Then I did some smaller trips. I spent some time in Scandinavia. I wanted to see the Northern Lights. This travel was like bucket list travel.
Yeah,
it was like all the things that I had wanted to do that either I couldn't because they were too far away and I couldn't get time off from work, or I just didn't have enough vacation time.
Yeah. All the things that 9 to 5s hold you back from.
Exactly.
That's awesome, though.
More like
At least
8
that's
to
experience.
7, but yeah.
Well, there you go, 8 to 7s. But yeah, no, that's
yeah.
super cool. And
Yeah.
so you opened up your new company, your new business.
Yes. So my new business is a complete pivot. And it's nothing I would have expected, and no one who knows me would ever predict that this would
Can't wait for you to
end
tell the
up.
audience how you got to it. Because
Yes.
when you told me, I was like, really?
Yes. Okay, so I am opening a custom made-to-order donut business. It's called Blazing Fresh Donuts. The tagline is, they're a BFD. And if kids ask what BFD stands for, the answer is Big Flavor Delivery. Got to keep it PG for the kids.
Okay.
And the idea behind this donut shop is you walk in and you say, I'd like 2 donuts. We drop the dough in the fryer.
It's freshly made. Right in front of you.
Fresh. The dough is just sitting there waiting for you.
I can see this being a kid novelty forever.
yeah.
Like literally
Oh, yeah.
forever. I can
Yes.
tell my daughter, hey, let's go make donuts. I'm
yes.
sure she would love it.
Absolutely. That's what I'm hoping. And so less than 3 minutes later, I hand you your donut. It's hot because it's just come out of the fryer, and we've decorated it however you would like. So I'll have a choice of frostings and drizzles and toppings, and you can make any combination you want. So if you are a weird person who likes maple frosting with chopped coconut, great.
And some pickles? No, I'm kidding.
No, I don't think
No pickles, no pickles.
No pickles, but we'll see. I mean, I'm open.
You open
If
to
there's
trying new
enough
things.
demand for topped pickles on a donut, I will do it.
Or we can make it like a challenge, maybe like a social media challenge. Who would try this,
That's
pickled
right.
donut? It's a good way of marketing, just saying. I don't know.
that's right. Yeah. Someone wants to put on my Insta a donut suggestion.
Have you went that route? Have you started an Insta social media handle behind your donuts?
Yeah. So I'm in the very, very early stages. My donut shop is not yet open. I hope to open in late spring or early summer.
Perfect timing. Yeah, nobody really good looking for donuts.
Yeah, I really want to be open by summer because that's, there's I think a lot of people are more likely to indulge
definitely,
in the summer. So I've just started with the social media. So I have an Instagram page, and I'll plug it at the end of the
Yeah, we'll definitely get that in there.
podcast if you don't mind. And I've built the website. It's still in beta mode. It's still password protected while my support
everything's under
team is
construction.
giving me some feedback.
I
But
get it.
I hope to have the webpage up in another week or so. Actually, the last big thing with the website is I need to take pictures of my actual donuts.
Actual donuts, yeah.
I have pictures of other people's donuts that I got from like the free stock images on Unsplash. But now I need to actually post my donuts. And so once I have that.
So are you the chef behind the donuts as well?
I am.
Okay.
Chef is a generous word. Donuts are not particularly complicated to make, but yes. And it's really it's not too difficult. I've sourced the equipment that I'll use, and it's not particularly complicated equipment. And really, I'll be able to teach everyone who works in the store how to work the equipment, how to decorate the donut.
And your store is located in Connecticut,
It's in Connecticut, on the Connecticut shoreline, likely to be in Guilford, Connecticut, which is not too far from New Haven, where Yale University is.
I'm not too familiar with Connecticut. I won't even deny like I know.
That's fine.
But I'm assuming, is it a high traffic area?
It's a beach town, but it has a year-round population.
That's awesome.
But I think it's the kind of place where I think donuts are going to do very well.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, the population of the town swells in the summer, which is another reason I'd like to be open before the summer.
How did you make that transition into Connecticut? You have a home out there? Is this something?
Yeah, so about, 10 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be able to buy a second home.
Sweet.
And I love the water. I find the water very soothing. And
Especially out of New York. Dude,
Absolutely.
everybody needs that just time away.
Absolutely.
Away from the city, right?
Absolutely.
For sure.
So I bought a second home on the Connecticut shoreline, and I don't have any connection to Connecticut. I picked it because
Kind of chose it.
well, it was affordable for what I had to spend and what I wanted, which is I wanted to be able to see the water from inside my house.
And anywhere outside of New York City is actually affordable sometimes.
That's right. I mean, I'm from Long Island, so I kind of discounted all of Long Island because I didn't want to go back home.
Okay.
And the Jersey Shore has lovely towns, but the towns that I could afford were not lovely.
Yeah.
And the lovely towns I couldn't afford.
Yeah, it's already branded. That's it.
That's right.
To go.
So then somebody said to me, well, Connecticut is the whole bottom part of Connecticut's on the Long Island Sound. And I went, oh yeah, that's right. So I bought in Connecticut. So for a while, I was actually spending Monday through Friday here in New York and then the weekends in Connecticut.
Okay.
And when I stopped working, I slowly started to spend more time in Connecticut because I didn't need to be in the city when I didn't have to report to an office.
Yeah.
And what I realized is I really do love it in Connecticut. And I love New York City, but I've been in New York now for 15 years.
Yeah. It's tough.
I think I'm ready.
I get that itch sometimes too. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's the city life. It's so fast. Everything's a million miles per hour.
Yes, I seem to be always running late in the city, no matter what.
No matter what, right?
No matter what.
Leave an hour early. I'm still half an hour late.
I mean, I would notice when I would drive up to Connecticut on a Friday after work, I could feel my blood pressure lowering as I got closer and closer to home. And I'm a more patient person in Connecticut. I'm the kind of person in Connecticut who lets people cut in front of them in the grocery store when they only have one item. In New York, I would never do that. Like, I'm in a rush.
Like, listen, I gotta go.
Yeah,
that 5 seconds I could have been somewhere else.
That's
No,
right.
it's so true.
I like the person I am in Connecticut a lot more than the person I am in New York.
No.
So when I decided to open up a business, I thought, I'm not going to do it in New York. I'm going to do it.
So we didn't get into that. So how did you get into the donut? Was it kind of like just a random choice? Like, was it a margins thing?
So once I got back from traveling, I actually was pursuing a startup idea in my industry, in the trading, on Wall Street, in the trading space with a couple of partners. Well, it just felt like, I've been doing it for 20 years. I still loved it. And we had a really compelling idea, I thought. So I was excited about the idea. And we worked on it for a good 9 months or so, and then ultimately we just determined we wouldn't be able to get
Was it the
funding.
partnership or was it the
it was
business?
a combination. I mean, I think the idea was great. The execution, there were some kinks that we just didn't think we could work out, and difficulties in getting funding.
Gotcha.
So we decided that we were going to part ways, and I was really depressed because I was pretty excited about that. I had really emotionally committed to that startup, and I really believed in it. So when it fell apart, I was really kind of in a funk. And this happened to coincide with my annual visit to Bethany Beach, Delaware.
Okay.
My brother rents a place there every summer, and every summer I go to visit him.
Nice.
And so at this point I probably had been going for about 5 years, and as we always did, my brother and my nephews and I would ride our bikes several miles to go to this donut shop that made hot, made-to-order donuts.
Okay.
And we were standing in the parking lot with our bikes and our donuts, and we were going crazy because these donuts are so amazing. And I just thought to myself, there's nothing like this in Connecticut where I live, and we have a lot of donut eaters because we have a Dunkin' Donuts on practically every corner. So I know there's donut eaters in Connecticut.
Cardboard eaters.
Cardboard donut eaters. That's right. No offense, Dunkin' Donuts, but I don't really think what you're selling are very good quality. And I thought I can bring this idea back to Connecticut and actually show people what a donut is supposed to taste like. Donuts are supposed to be eaten hot, just like fried chicken and pizza. They're supposed to be eaten hot, and we just kind of got used to eating them at room temperature and baked 6 hours, at 2 in the morning. And no, actually, donuts are supposed to be made to order and eaten hot. That's when they are the most delicious. So I blurted out to my family in the parking lot, I think I'm going to open a donut shop. And my nephew said, "Oh, that's so funny, Aunt Jody. Yeah, sure. You'll open a donut shop and we'll work in your donut shop and we'll eat all the donuts up." I just thought, well, it's kind of an interesting business idea. Every once in a while in your life, you come across something and you're like, somebody should do a business like that.
There's nothing wrong with scratching that creative itch.
That's right,
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
So I got back from that trip and I thought, well, this is either a crazy idea that is an overreaction to the failure of my startup and how heartbroken I was about that, or this is actually a really great idea. Like, I might be onto something, and the only way I'm going to know which it is to do my research, as I always do, because that's the kind of person I am. I wrote a business plan, and I thought either the business plan is going to make sense or it's not.
Yeah.
So I wrote a business plan, and as I did more and more research, I realized this is a really good idea. Like, financially, it makes sense. I believe passionately in the ability of a donut to make someone happy. Somebody walks in.
It's like a cookie.
It
really is.
Like, almost like any sugary treat. Like, you had a really bad day. Some people,
I'm only thinking about that donut when I get home.
Pour themselves a glass of wine when they've had a hard day. But some people, like me, want something sweet and comforting. And so I just thought it's the exact opposite of what I did on Wall Street, which was like work with people who are super serious and every second there's millions of dollars on the line, so it's high stakes. I just want to go. I want to be someplace where people are happy to see me. They're happy to be in my store, and I'm making them happy with this hot, delicious treat that I'm offering them. I just think, what a great way to spend the rest of my professional career.
And you're in Connecticut, and you see it. And you seem to be very interested in it.
I really am.
Why not?
I have thrown myself wholeheartedly into the research, and I've done tons of scouting trips. I have been to every donut store in New York City, by the way, because I wanted to see who was doing something that I wanted to copy and who wasn't. And I wanted to see if anyone was doing hot donuts. Okay. And there are a couple places in the city that do mini hot donuts. But nobody was doing the big, sort of the 3-inch, the big boys that I wanted to do. I even got a job in a donut store in Pennsylvania.
No way.
Yep.
Well, look at that. You see, but
I wanted to learn.
That's a true business owner, and I love it because I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, and he's always saying this, like, if you want to learn something, you have to be in the industry. And
so true.
Look, you didn't see anything wrong with coming 20 years in Wall Street and humbling yourself, and you know what, I don't mind working in a donut just to see how things work out.
I have to learn how it works.
That's amazing.
And I need to know how to do it so that I can teach other people who I'm going to hire to do it. And there's only so much research that you can do from afar, via the internet, right? And so I did a bunch of networking. As it turns out, I happened to know people who knew people who had run restaurants or been in food service. So that was great. That was a part of my network I never knew existed, because I was only ever tapping into my network to talk about Wall Street stuff.
Interesting.
So I was networking, and so I had gathered as much as I could, but there was this piece missing, which is like the day-to-day, and how do you develop that instinct of looking at a donut and know whether it's been fried correctly, and that sort of perfect flick of the wrist as you have the hot donut and you're putting it in the frosting.
Oh, you really analyzed it, huh?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to know. I am a super detailed individual. I need to know how everything works.
So have you created a logo, anything?
I have created I shouldn't say I've created a logo. I have an aunt who's a graphics designer, and she and her colleague created the logo for me, and I'm very grateful to Lori and Steve for making my logo.
Shout out to Lori and Steve.
Shout out to Lori and Steve.
No, that's great. That's great. And so this part, is it strictly by yourself? Your donut shop? Is it you or like
I'm the sole owner, owner operator. I will hire, and I hope to hire a manager who can be like my number 2, because one of the things that I had read from other people who've started small businesses is it's really easy to completely give up your work-life balance and just be at the store 7 days a week. 8 hours. Exactly, and it can crush you. So I'm going to try to be mindful of that and hire a number 2 so that I don't have to be at the store all the time.
So hiring is obviously new for you. what are you looking for if you decide in a manager? Like, what are you looking for?
So I have hired before because in my career I managed
Okay.
departments. So I have
Gotcha.
hired people. I've never hired anyone for this.
Okay.
And it's really, it is quite different, I have to say, because when I hired people in my Wall Street job, and I hired young people right out of college, I hired senior people who were in their 40s and 50s, there's an internal motivation that they come with, and there's a sense of ambition and responsibility, and how can I do more? How can I ride the?
Everyone has a different why.
That's right.
Everyone definitely has a different.
That's right.
I agree.
And so hiring for the donut shop, where I do have to hire number two, but I also need to hire some, kind of minimum wage type part-time work, because, I don't need high-skilled workers to make donuts, right? That's a very different mindset. Somebody who is, working hourly and is working part-time and has some, they're working part-time because they've got some other major thing in their life that keeps them from working full-time. It's a really different mindset, and so it's a different hiring process as well. I think for my number two, I think chemistry is really important. No matter what position you are hiring for,
no matter how good you are.
Chemistry, so, I'm looking for somebody who I think I can get along with and I can work closely with. Someone who I think their brain kind of works like my brain. I have worked with people with whom over time I developed like that secret language where I wouldn't even have to finish the sentence and they knew what I meant, and
just
vice
give them that
versa.
Wi-Fi look.
Yes, or even that look in the meeting, like, and they know, right?
It's like a child looking at their acting up kid.
That's right. So, I'd like to hire somebody that I think I might develop that secret language with. And then I think hiring for part-time hourly work, it's finding ways to engage them. One idea that I had, exactly. It's a part-time job, but that doesn't mean they don't care. And so I want them to feel like they care. It's it's not just the paycheck, as you say. So one idea that I had was. In terms of social media, I wouldn't say that I'm particularly great at it, and I think a lot of the younger people that I'm going to hire are going to be much better at it than me. So actually letting them play a role in helping me develop my social media campaign and content, I think is a great way for me to delegate something that I'm not the best at, and they may be better at than me, but also I think that if I put myself in the minds of the person I've hired, if they know that they're not just coming in and clocking in, clocking out, and
giving them
they
a
hate
creative
their boss,
side of things.
like they're actually involved in this
Creating
business,
and building
they get
and all
to
that,
see the results from the social media content that they put out. I think that will really help.
I think that's a good
care
strategy
more
plan,
than,
especially for like that age group that you're looking to hire. I wouldn't say that they may know social media because there's so many nuances to social media when it comes to marketing, and you'll learn it as you go. Trust me, I started learning it with my team now as well, as far as the marketing side of things. But giving your employees creative, I guess direction with it is going to speak volumes. So I love the idea as well.
Thanks.
That's good. It's good. But I guess, if you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience or anything that you have upcoming, because we want to get that out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the website is blazingfreshdonuts.com. Blazing with a G, blazingfreshdonuts.com. And my Insta page is Blaze Fresh Donuts, because it was too long to say blazing. So it's Blaze Fresh Donuts. So I would love it if you would follow me and check out the website. And as I said, we're going to open in the spring of 2019.
So if you're, what part of Connecticut?
Guilford, Connecticut. I haven't formalized a lease just yet, but there's a site that I'm looking at.
Connecticut, by the way.
Okay,
so,
good to know.
If you guys are listening in Connecticut, please stop by when it does open.
And yeah, I'm just super excited about it, and I am
I'm
I
excited
feel
for you.
fortunate that I have the confidence and the freedom to kind of pursue something that's a really wacky idea.
I think it gets to be so
But
creative. It's gonna be fun.
everything that I didn't know that I needed to know, I knew how to learn it.
Yeah.
I'm still learning. It's not like I know everything there is to know, but the thing that made it feel approachable was I knew how to fill in all of the gaps in my experience, and I knew how I had to go about doing certain things. And I think that
And you're approaching it with a
allows
great
me to
mindset.
kind of leap into the great unknown.
Yeah. And it's like any other entrepreneur. I mean, we learn how to use the parachute on our way down from the cliff. So,
true.
you know, at the end of the day, you're going to take some bumps and bruises, but you're going to learn from it. And
That's true.
I'm super excited just to see where the brand goes because it sounds like a really good idea. And it sounds like something that a lot of kids would be into. So,
Oh yes, I'm expecting a lot of kids
Coming in after school.
yeah. And then, you know, once the brand starts building itself, who knows? Maybe you can open up another one in New York City. I don't know if you want to come back, but if you do.
Well, maybe I'll hire somebody to run the New York store.
Hey, there you go. We'll be in charge of your social media marketing. That
Okay.
would be fun.
Okay, that's a deal.
Oh my God! But
I
thank
can only
you.
pay you in donuts. I hope that's all right.
He's with it.
You're good
I think
with
my
that?
daughter would be totally fine. I'll take one or two, but. But thank you, Jody, so much for stopping by at the podcast and sharing your story. I found it so intriguing. Like I said, meeting you and you leaving New York after 20 years. We don't get these kind of stories often. And I'm always trying to push my audience, anybody out there who's at the edge, you know, just take a chance on yourself. And you know, you guys' story it just emphasizes what I preach all the time. So excited
Great.
about that. But thank you guys so much for listening to the J-Team Brand Podcast. Joey Burns here, and if, as always, please share, comment, and like, subscribe, and just tell everybody about the podcast. Tell them it's a cool podcast. Tell them you like it, and you know, just share it along.
Great.
Thank you guys for listening. Take care.